Hey guys, I'm Sage Valentine. I'm back here to do another review of The Walking Dead. This time I'm reviewing the mid-season premiere of Season 6, Episode number 9, entitled No Way Out. Intense is not the word to describe this episode. I think that this was the best episode of the season so far. I'm sure there'll be other episodes that'll probably top this, but right now this one is number one in my book. The opening scene was intense. I watched the first 4 minutes that popped up on the internet last week, and I was like, well, how is this scene going to go? And I'm glad that they didn't drag that whole scene out. They just showed us clip, 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 and then boom. And when that RPG hit those saviors, I was just like, holy crap. Blank just got real. Here we go. But just so you know, for those of you that did not read the comic books, because I did, I'm all caught up on the Compendium. In fact, I'm all the way into the Season 7 storyline at this point. Just so you know, that whole murder scene in the comic books, it involves Dwight. And Dwight escapes and runs back to the Saviors. And basically, I guess he talks to Negan because Rick kills all those Saviors, along with, I think, Michonne, Heath, I think Glenn, I think Andrea was a part of it as well. And when Negan comes back, he's pissed, and that leads to Glenn's little death scene in the comic book. And it's an intense scene. Hopefully, I don't want to say that hopefully Glenn doesn't die that way, because then it'll be another favorite, but somebody's going to meet Lucille, and it's not a pretty picture at all. So I already know right now, after seeing that scene, you guys should know that Negan is on his way, and rumor has it that he's going to appear in the finale of Season 6, so I'm ready for it. I can't wait to see him. Now, as far as the big chop scene, the writers decided to just rip that band-aid off and say, F it, let's get to it. When Gabriel took little Judith, I was kind of confused. Like, he can't take care of himself. How's he going to take care of this kid? But kudos to him for taking care of Judith, and also later in the episode, kicking butt and taking names. But when Sam decided that he didn't want to go with Gabriel and he wanted to go with his mom, I knew that was it. He was going to die. It is what it is. But when that scene occurred, I mean, I read the comics, I knew what was going to happen, but I was still like, oh my God, like, just like in the comic book, you don't get a chance for like a conversation or anything. It's just like they pounce on little Ron, or in Sam's case, Sam, and then Jesse's so distraught that they essentially pounced on her, and Rick had to sever ties, so he had to cut off her arm. And then, of course, Ron decides to fire a shot, and in the middle of the melee, it hits Carl in the eye. And in the comic book, the way that it happened was that Douglas, the male version of Deanna, pretty much, he comes out trying to help Rick with this walker situation, and he gets overcome by walkers and fires a shot, and the shot hits Carl in the eye. So I do like that remix, and I am happy that Michonne took him out of the picture, Ron, I mean, because I was done with him, completely done. Now, as far as the situation with Glenn and Enid, I can see Enid being Sophia in the comic books. For those of you that have been watching the show, you know that Sophia is dead. But Enid is like the older, more teenage version of Sophia. So I am assuming that Enid is going to end up being Maggie and Glenn's kind of sort of child for a bit, which I'm okay with that. Now let's talk about the wolf leader and Denise. Now, I already knew that Denise was pretty much safe, because in the comic book, there is a storyline, a chain of events that happens that lead to what happens to her, basically, without spoiling it for you guys. And pretty much, I wasn't sure about the wolf. Like, was he going to kill her? Was he going to take her with him? And it seemed for a minute like he had changed, because it seemed like when she was running with him through those walkers and then she almost got attacked, he kind of like fought off one walker, and then a situation happened again, and he basically gave himself so that she could go away and be safe. I don't know how you guys interpreted that scene, but it seemed like he had changed a bit, but then if they had left the walls, God knows what would have happened. But I know when I was watching The Talking Dead, I don't remember if it was Carrie Underwood or was it Chris Hardwick, one of them said that it seemed like the wolf was going to take her away and put like a W on her head and they'd have W babies or something like that. But let's jump to the next thing. Okay, as far as Glenn and Maggie, I'm just glad Glenn is safe. Once again, Robert Kirkman and the writers keep trying us, because now they put Glenn in another tough situation where he had to not only save Maggie, but then he had to lure this huge herd of walkers away, and he was shooting and firing and she was firing, and it seemed like Glenn was a goner until Abe and Sasha appeared at the top of the wall and were just firing off shots, and I was happy. I'm like, good, awesome. Now Rick and Michonne and Carl all ended up at the infirmary because Denise ran over there because she was trying to help that wolf after he was bit, but he essentially got overcome, as I said, by the walkers. So to make a long story short, what ended up happening was that Denise looked out the window and saw Rick carrying Carl and Michonne fighting off the walkers, and she realized, like, dude, this dude, his son was shot, so they had to prepare everything. Meanwhile, I'm sitting back thinking about, I believe his name is Scott, that's Shaniqua Martin Green's husband, the one who hurt his leg. Like, I know what happens to him in the comics, but hopefully they are able to address it in the show. Like, he doesn't just disappear and then he pops up and we find out what happened to him. Now, as far as the ending, because I'm probably jumping all around, the ending was fantastic. I think that the whole montage that showed everybody that was left in that town just like hacking away at those walkers, and particularly we got to see a scene where Eugene refused to stay behind. Like, he had to go and fight off those walkers with Rosita and Tara and everybody else, and Father Gabriel was just like, you know what, God is going to save Alexandria, and he gave us the tools so that we won't be afraid anymore, and we will take back and save this town. So I thought that that was awesome. And Daryl managed to save the day again by leaking that oil from the truck and setting it ablaze. Now, Alexandria does catch on fire in the comics. However, what essentially happens is Negan has a hand in it. Now, will they do the scene like they did in the comic book with Negan? God only knows. But if they can find a way to incorporate that, because it's pretty intense, I'll be a happy camper. And I love the final shot after that scene, whereas we were kind of looking at the walkers, and then we see everybody who's left and alive, and we see Eric with his cast on his foot. Some people were bleeding. I guess they cut themselves, or they had like walkers' blood on them. And then we saw everybody inside, and I thought it was really cute to see Michonne holding little Judy, because clearly Judy's okay, so can't hate Father Gabriel too much, because he took care of little Judy. But I think the final scene with Rick talking to Carl really, really tugged at my heartstrings, because it did make me teary-eyed reading the comic book, obviously. And on top of the fact that I love the change in Carl, because Carl really becomes his own person after this situation, because he has to, of course, recover, but he really, really comes into his own, and I am looking forward to see that all play out. So I guess that's it, everyone, and we're in for it this season. There will be no downtime, and yes, the show is following the comic book. It may not be 100%, but like I said, it's about 95%. So I can't wait to see how this plays out, and that's about it. Love you guys. Bye, guys. Bye.